there's a specific thought that I think stops many survivors from allowing themselves to process what they've been through. And it's the I should just be grateful that I'm alive thought. Hola, welcome to Sana Sana podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Lopez Tomei. I'm a first-generation Cuban-American woman, breast cancer survivor, and mother of 5. I'm also a certified professional coach. Sana Sana is dedicated to you, Hispanic and Latina breast cancer survivors who've always been the strong ones and now feel lost in their identity after cancer diagnosis. Every week, I'll be sharing the foundation of my ecosystem of healing coaching process, which I use to help my clients restore trust in their bodies, release perfectionism, advocate for themselves, and live from a place of healing and peace rather than survival. Tune in to hear my real-life experiences, carving a new path for myself after remission, but helping my coaching clients carve a new path for themselves too. Hello, sister survivors. Welcome to episode 14 of Sana Sana. Today's episode is about the feelings you saved for later, processing what the strong one didn't have time to feel. I'm looking forward to sharing this episode with you. A client told me something recently that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. She said, I felt like I missed a step. She put all her energy, concentration, and strength into treatment. She kept strong for her family. She got through it. And then months later, she realized she had suppressed feelings of anger, of sadness, of fear. She had, in essence, saved her feelings for later. And when she spoke to me, later had arrived. She didn't know what to do with those feelings. And I can't stop thinking about it because she's not alone. And I know this from personal experience. This is one of the most common and least talked about experiences in cancer survivorship. And because the woman most likely to experience it is the strong one, the one this podcast was made for, the one in the middle of treatment, performing strength that she doesn't fully feel, the one whose treatment ended and who expected relief but instead feels disoriented or suddenly overwhelmed, the one years out, like me, whose feelings found her in an unexpected moment through a smell, a song, or, in my case, a small dot on her chest. Research confirms an emotional crash after treatment ends. Anxiety and depression can intensify after treatment, not just during it. Researchers describe survivors feeling dropped when active treatment ends. And approximately 1 in 4 cancer survivors experiences anxiety and depression at levels warranting support. If what I just described is landing for you, if you feel like you missed a step, that is exactly the work I do as a survivorship coach. Book a free discovery call with me at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. The link is always in the show notes. So why did the feelings get deferred for my client, for me, for so many cancer survivors? During treatment, our nervous system goes into emotional suspension, if you will. There's too much to manage, too much at stake, too much to feel and process all at once. And I want to be clear, this is not denial. It's not a weakness. It's intelligence. The body makes a practical decision. We are going to hold the feelings here. We're going to just put them in a little drawer, put them in a little box. We're going to compartmentalize and we're going to hold them here in that place until there's room for them. And the woman, especially the Latina woman that I like to call the strong one, is particularly skilled at this. She's been practicing emotional deferral her whole life. And then what happens? Treatment ends, the crisis lifts, the feelings come looking for the room that finally opened up. So Ponte Fuerte, or Get Strong, had a purpose. It got you through treatment, and your family needed you to get through it. What the culture didn't give us, was the instruction for what to do afterwards. Nobody said, when treatment ends, you're allowed to fall apart, a little or a lot. You're allowed to feel everything that you put off, that you deferred while you were surviving. And that instruction is what this episode is for. As we've said before, your oncologist and your medical team treated your cancer. Nobody, though, gave you a plan for the emotional aftermath of surviving. And that's not a failure of doctors or the medical team. It's a gap in the system. And it is exactly the gap that survivorship coaching and mental health support are designed to fill. If you're listening to this while still in treatment, this section is for you specifically. You don't have to save everything for later. You can undertake small acts of emotional honesty or openness during treatment. Even 5 minutes before sleep of naming what you're actually feeling can reduce the size of what you carry into lifelong survivorship. And I want to caveat that just a little bit, right? Like you know yourself best, and you have to know what you're ready for and when you're ready for it. So I say take 5 minutes a day, every other day, a week, if you feel that you can do that. Seek support if you feel that you need it. You don't have to hash out all of your feelings about diagnosis, treatment, surgery, survivorship during treatment. But starting now can help so much for when treatment ends. You don't have to process it all. You don't have to fall apart at all if you don't feel like it, or you don't think that's necessary. But you are allowed to not be fine. Even briefly, even privately, even if it's just on paper in your journal. So I want to share a story with you now. The story takes place about 2 to 3 years after August of 2016. I'm at my sister-in-law's house in the Keys. She has a beautiful home in the Keys that she often opens up to us and to her family and friends. And I'm there with my husband, with most of my kids, not all of them, but most of my kids are there. This is the same house where I discovered the lump in my breast. And it was an ordinary afternoon, an ordinary summer afternoon, I think. Everyone was laughing. Everybody was having a great time. Margaritas were being made and served. Everyone was in or around the pool. And I was in the pool, and for whatever reason, I looked down to check my bathing suit top. When I looked down, I saw the radiation tattoo at the base of my cleavage. It's just a little small dot. And I started to cry. Then to sob. Then to wail uncontrollably. I couldn't stop it. It was just all coming out. And everything and everyone stopped. People got out of the pool. I got out of the pool, and I had to lie down on the deck chair. And went on like that for a minute. My husband came over and initially tried to comfort me, and when he saw that I just needed to just get it all out, he just held my hand and sat there with me. I think that what it was is that everything that I had managed through diagnosis, chemo, surgery, radiation, recovery, surfaced in the middle of that ordinary afternoon. It didn't happen in a therapist's office. It didn't happen in a coaching session. It happened where my guard was down, where my body finally had the room to not just remember those, suppressed feelings, but to express them. So this pool story is an example of the feelings arriving through my body before I could articulate them. I sobbed and I wailed. I didn't analyze. What was happening in my body at that moment, it was just like the dam overflowed. The gates burst open, and I just remember feeling it here in my chest. Not necessarily as a tightness, but it's just this intense and deep, deep sadness that I had been keeping at bay, not wanting to feel or express, because I think I understood the depth of it and was worried that it would not just overwhelm me, but that it would overwhelm the people that I love. And, there are other times in my survivorship where feelings have surfaced through my body before my mind could catch up. This is the most stark example of that. But for me, it always starts here in my chest. I know now that it's coming when I feel either a tightness or a heaviness, or I can't catch my breath. It's not that I literally can't catch my breath. It's just this feeling, almost like an emotional feeling of not being able to catch my breath. And I have learned through practicing yoga, through practicing meditation and mindfulness, and even something as simple as the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 present moment exercise. It's an exercise that helps to bring us back to the present moment. Doesn't always work, but I grab onto anything that I can when I feel like, like this wave of emotion is coming. And so these practices, and primarily I want to say breath work, although also movement like yoga, have helped me access the feelings that were hard to reach through talking or writing. And I would say to you, dear listener, that ask yourself, where do these feelings live in my body? What is a clue? Where do I feel it? Where do I sense it when these feelings are surfacing or about to surface? And sit with that for a little bit. It's a good thing to be aware of and to notice, not just so that you can talk about it, whether it's in therapy or with a coaching client, but also so that you can learn about what practices might work best for you. Not just when those feelings come forward, but in bringing them forward in a way that is manageable. And, the feelings don't disappear just because we defer them. They wait. I joke sometimes with my colleagues at work about how part of our job is to maintain a very neutral everything. Neutral kind of poker face, neutral way of expressing ourselves, neutral in terms of our opinions, whether they're personal or professional, neutral in the way that we present ourselves publicly. And so we often push things down and push things down and push things down. And by pushing those feelings down, we think we've eliminated them, or we've surpassed them, or we've moved beyond them. And, we laugh about the day that they're all going to come rushing forward. And I've experienced this personally, so I do kind of chuckle with them. And sometimes if they're willing to listen, I tell them, we're joking about it, but these feelings are going to find a way out someday. And they find a moment usually when our guard is down and there's room for them to come out. And the most important thing in that moment is not to manage it. It's to get out of the pool. I want to talk about 2 moments, important and emotional moments, when I realized or was told that there was no evidence of disease. In other words, through blood work or other diagnostic testing, there was no more evidence of cancer in my body that could be detected. Moment 1 was when I finished radiation. That was the last leg of my 3-legged or 3-pronged treatment. I had chemo first, then I had a bilateral mastectomy and ended with radiation. And after all of that, when I finished radiation, I got to ring the bell because I was done. There was no evidence of disease in my body. And it's been almost 10 years since that moment. And I'd be lying if I told you that I remember what happened after that day that I rang the bell. My husband, my kids, my mom, my sisters, my brothers-in-law, my nephews and nieces were all there. So I hope that we celebrated, but more likely what happened is that I went home with my family and just went about my life. Certainly by then I was tired of being a cancer patient and thought I could go back to normal, whatever that means. And in a way, normal for me at the time meant me being the strong one doing what she does, compartmentalizing so that I could meet my responsibilities and keep performing the routine that I and my family and my job and others had come to rely on me to perform. And that protected me. So it was important. That performance of routine and of normal, going back to normal, was important. It was also lonely at times, especially at work. And it also meant that the feelings went somewhere to wait, as I've said a few times already. Hi, I'm a 10-year breast cancer survivor. And when I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, I hadn't had a mammogram in 4 years. I thought I could wait. I couldn't. For Latina and Hispanic women, breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, and we're often diagnosed later when it's harder to treat. But early detection changes everything. Today, the guidance is simple. Start mammograms at 40 and don't skip them. And while self-exams aren't a replacement, knowing your body helps you catch changes sooner. So if you've been putting it off, this is your sign. Schedule the mammogram. Know your body. Advocate for yourself, because your life is worth that appointment. In May of this year, I went for my 6-month checkup with my oncologist, and my oncologist surprised me with a question. He asked me if I was ready to graduate as a cancer patient. So he told me I could stop taking the aromatase inhibitor that I've been taking for almost 10 years. I'd been going to the oncologist every 6 months for almost 10 years. My labs looked good. I was in otherwise good health. And, graduating as a cancer patient meant no more 6-month appointments, no more blood work every 6 months, no more physical exams twice a year, stopping the aromatase inhibitor, no more anxiety, pre-appointment anxiety. And so the yes that sprung up before my mind could really process the question caught me off guard, if I'm being honest. I felt joy, hope, freedom, real and true. And what I didn't realize until I looked back was for almost 10 years, those appointments had been a comfort, a routine of being watched over, checked, cared for. So that day I went about the rest of my day as if nothing monumental had happened. I don't even think I called my husband right away or anyone right away to say I've graduated as a cancer patient. I just kind of compartmentalized that, and I thought, yay me, and made sure that I was meeting my responsibilities for the rest of that day, whether they were work or family. And so my observation is that there's a both and here, right? The joy and the loss are not contradictory. Being released from every 6 months having to go to the oncologist is a victory. And it is also the end of a structure that held me. And so I am allowed to feel the two things that I felt, the immediate joy and relief and hope and freedom, and the that came later when I really sat down and thought, wait, no more 6 months appointment means nobody's going to be checking my blood, drawing my labs. I check myself. I do a physical exam, but nothing like an oncologist who's really experienced, with breast cancer to check you over every 6 months, right? Make sure that I didn't miss anything. So, yeah, there were two seemingly contradictory feelings, but not really. They go together is what I realized, and it's okay to feel them both at the same time. I'm going to pause here for just a second, because if what we've been talking about is landing for you, I want you to know there's somewhere you can take it. My name is Eileen Lopez Tomei, and I'm a cancer survivorship coach and a 10-year breast cancer survivor. And I work with Latina survivors who've always been the strong one and who are now navigating diagnosis, treatment, or survivorship, and are looking for others to step in and step up and provide the strength, and are also not sure of who they are or where they stand in this moment. I'd love to talk to you, please go to paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez-Tomei and book a free discovery call. Okay, now back to my client and to what she taught me about why this work matters. So the client that I opened with, she had put all her energy and strength into treatment. She kept strong for her family. She kept everything on track. She made sure she went to all of her appointments and that all her appointments were scheduled, and she asked the questions. She asked what comes next. She followed all the steps that she was supposed to follow. And then months after her treatment was over, she felt like she had missed a step. Like, I'm trying to recall her exact words, but she said something like, while I was keeping it together for everyone else, and everyone was telling me, wow, you're doing so great. Like, considering a diagnosis of this magnitude, right? Or news of this magnitude, you're holding it together so well. And I think what she described was that she felt like a distance from her own feelings. And then once everything was over, those feelings did start to kind of bubble up or surface. And she realized that she had suppressed anger, sadness, fear. And she said to me that she wanted coaching because she wanted to examine those feelings, to feel them, and to move forward from them. And for me, what it unlocked in me as her coach is, even though cancer stays with you in some way for the rest of your life, making sure that you acknowledge what you felt, and especially what you felt but didn't let anyone know that you were feeling at the time, is essential for your inner healing. The doctors, the medical team, the cancer center, the survivorship program, all of those things address your outer healing. Making sure that you address your feelings is for your inner healing. And it builds your capacity to have feelings, to name them, to express them, and to move forward from them. Right? Because we don't just want to name our feelings or express our feelings. We also want to be able to process them and move forward from them with a greater capacity to receive more and process more feelings in the future. So if you're experiencing any of this, what you're experiencing is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's not a sign that you didn't process things properly during treatment. I want to be clear. You haven't done anything wrong. When my client said she skipped a step, she wasn't saying it in a self-accusatory way, and I'm certainly not saying it that way to you, my audience. It is a sign that you survived something enormous, and your nervous system is doing the work it could not do while you were surviving, which is feeling your feelings, expressing them, processing them. And again, there's research that says that feelings can intensify after treatment ends, not just during treatment. This is documented. This is normal. You're not unusual. You are what the research predicted. There's a specific thought that I think stops many survivors from allowing themselves to process what they've been through, and it's the I should just be grateful that I'm alive thought, or the other people have it worse thought, or the I made it, what am I complaining about thought, as if grieving is the same thing as complaining. And by the way, both are okay, and we as survivors have earned the right to grieve and to complain. Those thoughts of what do I have to complain about, I should be grateful, they're real, and they come from a genuine place. And it's one of the most effective suppressors of emotional processing there is. And here's what I want to say to you directly. Gratitude and grief are not in competition. Let's sit with that for a moment. We don't have to feel either gratitude or grief. We can feel both. Both are valid. You are allowed to be deeply grateful to be alive and deeply sad about what cancer took from you and what the cost of being alive is. You are allowed to feel angry about what you went through and thankful that you survived it. The gratitude does not cancel the grief. The grief does not cancel the gratitude. Both are true. Both deserve room. I want you to feel that from the tippy tip of your toes to the toppy top of your head. Especially if you've ever had the experience where a family member, a friend, a stranger, a doctor says to you when you talk about a symptom, a post-treatment symptom or a symptom you're having in survivorship or an experience you had or chemical menopause or anything negative that can be perceived, that is negative, not perceived as negative, having come out of cancer treatment. If anyone tells you, but wasn't it worth it? Like I had a doctor tell me, but wasn't it worth it? Almost like, I don't know, like by me expressing or complaining about the after effects of cancer, I'm somehow being ungrateful for what the doctors did for me. And that's not, of course it's worth it to be alive. Or maybe it wasn't worth it. And I never really sat down, either never really was given the option or never gave myself the option to sit down because I didn't have all the information at the time to really think about quality of life versus quantity of life. And that may be shocking to some, but it's a right that we have as patients and as survivors. All right, that we had a moment there. And I want to go on and talk a little bit about the feelings that survivors defer. And maybe you know this and maybe you don't, but I'm going to share with you that of all the feelings that survivors defer, anger is the one most likely to go unnamed. And I don't know if there's research around this, but I bet this is especially true for Latinas because good daughters don't get angry. Because if you were angry or upset at a person or at someone in the family, well, the people around you were just trying to help. Be grateful because you're supposed to be grateful. And because anger, I think generally in a woman and particularly in a Latina woman because of how we're socialized, anger in a woman who was raised to be la niña buena, not to complain, not to cause problems, to, keep her eyes lowered, to be grateful. Anger feels like a betrayal of who she is supposed to be, who she was told she is supposed to be. But the anger's there, and it's very specific. There is anger at the diagnosis itself. And, Lord forbid we shake our fists at God, right? When I would tell my mom or someone that I was mad at God, it's like, oh my gosh, you don't be mad at God. Like, why not? God can take it. He can handle it. He can handle my anger. So there might be anger at the diagnosis itself, anger at what treatment took from your body, from your work, your family, your identity, anger at the people who didn't show up the way you needed. And maybe the one that is the hardest to say out loud is anger at having had to be the strong one for everyone else while your own feelings went unexpressed and unmet. Anger at having performed strength when what you needed was permission to not be strong, to fall apart. And that last one is the one most survivors have never said out loud to anyone. It also is the one that needs the most air, or to be aired out the most. And so I want to give you permission again and tell you are allowed to be angry, not at a person necessarily, but at the situation, at what was asked of you, at what was done to you, at what it cost you. Anger is not the opposite of gratitude. It is not ingratitude. It is information. It tells you something important about what you needed and didn't get. What's next is that there is another category of feelings that often surfaces after treatment, and this one carries particular shame. The complicated feelings about the people who loved you through it. It might look like unexplained irritability toward your husband or partner or children or sisters or close friends in the months after treatment is over. Irritability you can't explain or justify. It might look like resentment towards someone who wasn't there the way you needed them to be, even though you know they were doing their best. Complicated gratitude, the feeling of owing people, enormous, that you can never fully repay, which sometimes sits like a weight rather than a gift. Or the quiet feeling that people who weren't sick moved on with their lives while you were still inside the experience, and the loneliness of that. These feelings carry enormous shame because you love these people, because they showed up, and because feeling anything complicated about the people who helped you feels like ingratitude. So having complicated feelings about the people who were there does not make you ungrateful. It makes you human. Again, surviving something enormous like breast cancer with other people is complicated. Their feelings, their fears, their needs were all in the room too. And sometimes the strong one spent so much time managing everyone else's experience of your cancer, you being the strong one, that you've never had a chance to fully process your own. All right, sister survivors, we have talked a great deal about feelings and complicated feelings and anger and gratitude. And now I want to give you some practical tools for how to navigate the deferred feelings. All right, tool number 1, name it before you try to move through it. So instead of saying, I feel bad, try to be more specific. I feel angry, I feel sad, I feel afraid, I feel betrayed, I feel lonely. Naming is not a small thing. For many survivors, naming a feeling or feelings is the first time that the feeling has been acknowledged to exist at all. So try this. Write down one feeling that you have been carrying that you have never said out loud to anyone. Just the word. You don't have to do anything with it. Just name it. Tool number 2. Find a space where your feelings are the whole agenda and you don't have to manage anyone else's reaction to them. Whether it's a therapist session, a coaching session, in a journal with a trusted person who can hold the weight of those feelings without needing you to reassure them. If you have always been the strong one, then your tendency is to defer your feelings, partly because you don't want to burden others. And so you need a space where being the one with the feelings is literally the point. Tool number 3, create the conditions. So deferred feelings don't surface on command. They surface when your nervous system feels safe and still. For the woman who identifies as the strong one, those conditions can be rare and have to really be intentionally created through rest, through solitude, through physical stillness, through the absence of a crisis. The pool in the Keys wasn't random. My family was around me. The setting was familiar. I was laughing. We were all laughing and relaxed, and I had nothing to manage in that moment. And my feelings found the pool because space finally existed for them. Or space finally opened up for them. And so the practical question here for this tool is, what in your life right now creates conditions for feelings to surface? And what consistently prevents them? So let's go back and identify the 3 tools again. Number 1 is name it before you try to move through it. Number 2 is find a space where your feelings are the whole agenda and you don't have to manage anyone else's reaction to your feelings. And number 3 is create the conditions. Create the conditions for your feelings to be able to surface safely. Before we close, there's something that I feel I need to say clearly. What I have described in this episode is normal. Deferred emotional processing is normal. The tools I've shared can help with that. And there are so many other tools, especially if you're working with a therapist or working with a survivorship coach. They can share more tools with you. But I want to just be really clear. For some survivors, what they're experiencing is not garden variety deferred processing. It's post-traumatic stress, which is a clinical condition that requires professional mental health intervention, not just coaching or journaling. And if what you're carrying is interrupting your sleep, your relationships, or your ability to function day to day, if it feels bigger than a wave that comes and goes, please seek clinical support. A licensed therapist with experience in trauma or cancer survivorship is ideal. And don't do it as a last resort, but as the right level of care and intervention for where you're at right now. That is not a failure. That is getting the help that matches what you're dealing with. And it's exactly what I would want for you. To my client, I said, and I would say to anyone who feels that way, I missed a step. You didn't miss a step. You saved the step for when you were ready. And you were ready when you walked into coaching. And if you're listening today, maybe you're ready too, even if it doesn't quite feel like it. Sana, sana, colita de rana. Si no sanas hoy, sanarás mañana. Remember, healing doesn't all come at once. It doesn't have to come today. It can come and will come in your tomorrow. The feelings that you save for later deserve your attention now. So whenever you're ready, hermana, I'm here. Sana, sana. Please subscribe to Sana Sana the podcast if you haven't already, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Leave a review. It helps others find the podcast. And if this episode named something that you've been carrying, share it with a survivor who might be carrying the same thing in silence. And finally, book a free discovery call with me at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. I'd love to be in the room with you. See you next week. Sana Sana. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Sana Sana, the show that helps you heal and restore the parts of your ecosystem that were depleted after a breast cancer diagnosis. If you liked the episode, please leave us a rating and review so we can reach more incredible survivors como tú who want to heal with us. If you want to stay connected with our growing community, check out our Instagram at Eileen Lopez Tomei Coach and share what part of the episode touched your heart today. See you next week.